Look at the painting behind me, 7 perfect rings of fire, one folded inside another, wrapping the earth like the shell of an egg. That is not a metaphor a monk invented to make you feel small. According to the oldest chapters of the Book of Enoch, that is a diagram, a working diagram of gates, degrees, and days, dictated to a prophet by an angel whose entire job was astronomy. Most people who have heard of Enoch have never read this section because it doesn't read like a vision. It reads like an instruction manual. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how many gates the sun uses to rise and set, why the moon, according to this text, doesn't actually make its own light, and you'll hear the one line in this whole section that scribes argued over for centuries because it accuses somebody of getting the calendar wrong. Not somebody in Enoch's time, somebody much later, possibly us. Welcome to Explaining Lost Pages. I'm Nathan Cole, and tonight we open a part of Enoch nobody puts on a highlight reel. The Book of the Luminaries, chapters 72 through 82, the part where an angel teaches a man how the sky runs. Here's the thing most retellings skip. The angel who takes Enoch on this tour isn't Michael the warrior or Gabriel the messenger. It's Uriel, a name that means God is my light, and in this text he isn't fighting anyone or announcing anything. He's teaching. Uriel, the holy angel who is their guide, showed me all their laws, not a war, a syllabus. Enoch is walked gate by gate through the mechanics of the sun, the moon, the winds, and the stars, the way an apprentice is walked through a workshop. If the only Enoch you know is fallen angels and giants, this is the same book, a completely different mood. Start with the sun. The text says it doesn't rise just anywhere along the horizon. It rises and sets through 6 specific portals in the east and 6 in the west, working its way through them across the year, 30 or 31 days at each one before shifting to the next. That's the ancient explanation for something you've noticed and never questioned, why the sun climbs higher in summer and drags lower in winter. Modern astronomy calls this the ecliptic. This text calls it doors, 12 of them. And it insists somebody counted. Now the moon, and this is the detail that stops people. The text describes the moon's light as borrowed, arriving in fixed fractions from the sun, filling up 1/7 at a time until it reaches fullness, then draining the same way. It isn't describing feelings the way a poet would. It's doing arithmetic. A pre-telescope text treating the moon as a reflector rather than a light of its own, in a chapter most Bibles don't even include. Whatever you think this book is, unscientific isn't the word for this specific page. All of this adds up to something specific, a full year of 364 days split clean across the gates. But the text doesn't stop at the math. It flags a problem, 4 extra days tucked outside the 12 gates that most people forget to count, and Uriel says plainly, owing to them men go wrong. That's not a vague warning about sin in general. That's a warning about a specific mistake, dropping 4 days and drifting off the actual calendar of heaven. History backs the argument up. This is the same 364-day calendar the community at Qumran fought to keep against a temple in Jerusalem that had already moved to a different one. A real, documented dispute about which calendar heaven actually runs on. One more system quickly because it belongs to the same design. 12 more gates, 3 on each side of the sky, release the winds, and the text is specific that 4 of them carry blessing while 8 carry ruin. Even the weather in this cosmology isn't random, it has a floor plan. One more piece of the floor plan because it matters later. The text doesn't stop at gates in the sky, it draws lines across the earth too. 4 quarters, 4 named directions, each with its own mountains, its own seas, its own winds assigned to it. This isn't decoration. In this cosmology, geography and astronomy are the same discipline. The same angel who counts gates for the sun also maps the corners of the world because both are part of one running structure. If the sky has a schedule, the ground underneath it has a layout. Once you notice that, the rest of the book starts to read less like myth and more like a land survey somebody was determined to get exactly right. Now back to those 4 extra days because Enoch names names. Each of them belongs to a leader, a specific star assigned to stand at the head of that day, guiding it into the calendar the way a captain guides a ship into port. The text lists them like a roster, not a riddle. Leaders, followers, thousands of stars organized under them, everyone accounted for. It's the same instinct you saw with the sun's 12 gates and the moon's 1/7 fractions. Nothing in this sky is anonymous. Every moving light has a name, a rank, and a job. For a book people assume is chaos and fire, the actual text reads more like a census. Then the tone changes, and this is the part I think about the most. Uriel doesn't just hand over a diagram and walk away, he attaches a warning to it. In the days of sinners, he says, the years will grow short, the moon will change its order and no longer appear at its proper time, and the stars will transgress their appointed courses. That's not a threat about fire or judgment in the usual sense. It's a threat that the machine itself will start running wrong, that getting the calendar wrong isn't just a paperwork error, it's a symptom of something breaking at the level of creation. Whether you read that literally or as ancient poetry, it's a strange thing to find sitting quietly in the middle of a chapter about arithmetic. So how does any of this survive to reach us? The text answers that too. Enoch says he was shown heavenly tablets, a written record of everything, the whole design laid out in a book he's told to read and copy. Then he's sent back down to earth, given exactly 1 year, and told to spend it teaching his son Methuselah everything he's just learned, before he's taken up for good. 1 year, 1 student, 1 transmission, that's the entire chain this knowledge survives on. Not a temple, not an institution. A father finishing his last assignment on earth by making sure his son could pass it on. That's the charge Enoch leaves Methuselah with, word for word, close enough. Write this down and hand the book to the generations after you. Which means every reader of this chapter today is, technically, still inside that instruction, the last link so far in a chain that was built on purpose to outlast the man who started it. That's part of why this section survived at all outside the mainstream Bible. Communities who took the 364-day calendar seriously kept copying it, arguing over it, protecting it, long after the wider world moved on to a different clock. One last number and then we're done with the arithmetic. Scholars who study the Dead Sea Scrolls today still argue about how exactly this 364-day system lined up with the lunar calendar most of the ancient world actually used, whether it was ever meant to run alone or always alongside it, corrected every few years the way we add a leap day. Enoch's text doesn't resolve that fight for us. It just insists there was a right answer, precise enough to be gotten wrong, and important enough that an angel spent an entire chapter making sure one man wrote it down correctly. Here's what stays with me about this section. Most of what people know about Enoch is fire and giants and a war before the flood. This part is quieter. A prophet handed a working model of creation and told, "Pay attention because the world will eventually forget how to count its own days." In short, the Book of Enoch didn't just preserve a warning about fallen angels. It preserved an argument about the calendar specific enough that a real desert community staked its worship on it. Knowing that doesn't shrink the mystery of Scripture. It just means there's more of it than we were ever shown. If you want the part of this book most people never even reach, where Enoch is walked past these gates entirely into the storerooms of heaven itself, I've already opened that page too. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.